5. We'll come back to the local radio debate that has been happening in the Commons this afternoon. Under the proposals, you'll be aware, the 39 stations, local stations that the BBC has across the country, would merge output after 2 o'clock each afternoon into 18 cross-region programmes with more combined shows at the weekends. The current plan is that the three counties service after 2 would involve Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Cambridgeshire, Norfolk and Suffolk. Dean Russell is the Conservative MP for Watford who spoke during the debate. Dean, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Dean. Thank you for joining us. Right, you stood up in the House. I thank you for your kind words. Why do you think local radio, for you, why is local radio important?
Oh, many reasons, actually. But I think one of the main things is the word local. You know, it's about understanding what's going on the ground. Often, especially as an MP, a lot of the work that we do is constituency-based. You know, it's stuff that really affects people in their own homes or on their street or in their local community, and in my case, in the town. And what I think you do and what BBC local radio does so well, and especially Three Counties, is really engage on that front, helps make sure local issues have a voice, but also talks to the issues that really matter to people who are my constituents, but also to me as well. You know, I'm a local constituent in my own constituency. You know, I live there, and so it's important to be able to know what's going on in the local area, and I think that's what you do so brilliantly. But also, it's absolutely essential that that news does get out.
I always think there's part of what you guys do as MPs and what we do as local radio teams is there's a similarity. I think of the example, Dean, because we first met during a number of hustings before the election. I think whenever it was you were elected, but way back. Yeah. And those hustings, those wouldn't normally happen. They would happen in town halls, in village halls. But the way we put them out on the radio, certainly on this programme, we bring people together, prospective MPs, and we give local people a chance to quiz you guys, because we hold you to account, you hold us to account, but we have these unique platforms where we give the local electorate a chance to hear who wants to stand to be an MP and what the outlook and what the outcome could be. Absolutely,
100%. And I think, you know, but also the context of it. You know, I'll give you a good example. I think, you know, in Watford, things like Woodmere Avenue, the width restriction that I took to Parliament, I did an adjournment debate on it, helped to make sure that got, that the local government got held to account and made sure that got fixed. Now, for the rest of the country, although it was featured in the Daily Mail at one point, I think, for the worst width restriction in the UK, but actually for most of the country, they won't care about that. But people in that local area, in the Tudor ward and in that part of Watford, and anyone who's driven through there, it is a big issue, and it was a big issue that needs to be resolved. And those sorts of things aren't going to get talked about on Newsnight. They're not going to get talked about on national TV or radio. But actually, for BBC Three Counties, your team tap into that sort of stuff and enable me and others to be held to account, but also helps create a voice for issues that really do affect people and bother them and perhaps keep them up at night, that perhaps aren't national issues, but are genuine issues for those people. And I think that's what's so important. And again, when you're holding people like me to account, actually you're able to ask about those sorts of things. What are we doing about it? But also raise awareness of the fact that there's an issue to be sorted. And I think that's where, you know, that two-way engagement is so important. And you can't do that just at a national level. It's got to be at a local level.
I think you mentioned the Prism Nightclub, that conversation we had a couple of months back, Dean, and that is a big story. That was a big story at the time in your constituency in Watford. And on that day, I cannot believe how many people we had texting the programme with their stories. It just shows that it's a story that nationally no one would bat an eyelid, but locally in Watford, that was and it still is a massive story.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing. You know, when I first met when I heard about the nightclub potentially closing, and I met the team down there, you know, you realise the weight of the impact that would have. You know, it's not just about the nightclub; it's about the local economy. I was getting a cab home from Watford Metropolitan Station last night and chatting to the cab drivers there about it. You know, and the impact it would have on them. And you know, these are real issues that affect people, and you just wouldn't get coverage. And to be honest, I would say on the interviews you've done with me and other local presenters, but especially you, and I don't just mean this to be nice, but actually you've probably held me to account in a better way than you would on Newsnight. I've done Newsnight a few times, and to be honest, it tends to be an opportunity to just say something and then be moaned at a little bit, and you don't really get across and have a conversation. Whereas with BBC Three Counties and actually local radio in general, you can discuss this stuff. You can try and explain the pros and cons. You can get held to account on those in a way that you just can't when you've got a two-minute sound bite to give and move on to the next segment for the next national story. And it's so important. And for people like me, actually, my job is better done when I know what the issues are. You know, it's great and it's wonderful getting invited to do visits, but actually it's the conversations around those visits, it's those conversations in the patch that really make a difference.
And I thank you for that. Listen, what some listeners might not be aware of is when there are local issues, not just you, but all the other MPs from all parties across Beds, Herts and Bucks, I know that if there's a local issue that isn't being resolved and we contact you guys, and we send you an email or a message, then and I know you've done it, you get involved and you sort things out for your constituents. And again, it's that two-way street where I guess we just, it's that unique working we have because we have to work in this local platform together.
Absolutely, and it is a partnership, you know. And as you say, it's not just holding people to account, but it's about making sure that those issues get a fair hearing. But also, there's things where I'll hear it first on the radio, and then I can look into it in more detail and find out. And to be fair as well, with local news as well, newspapers, it's a way that I can't be everywhere. No MP in any party can be everywhere. We learn a fair amount from constituents who write to us. I mean, I think me and my team have completed, 17,000 cases, constituency cases, probably 18,000 in the past 3 years. So you'd learn a load on that. But actually, you have got this fantastic role of going out as journalists on the ground, on the street, following what's going on online. And it means that we can then also hear what's happening that we might not have picked up because we can't be everywhere 24/7. So it's a real two-way street. And I think that's what worries me, as I hopefully got across in my speech in Parliament, that actually if we lose that, you lose that connection. But also I think residents lose out because they don't have that voice and don't get to hear the voice of what's going on in their local area.
Dean, thank you. Dean Russell, the Conservative MP for Watford, who spoke during the debate in the House of Commons. I'll bring you more on this in the next few minutes after the weather. Something you may not be aware of, and it doesn't work all the time because